I want to thank everyone for being patient with me this last couple of months because I've had COVID-19 twice. Once in July, over the 4th of July, and also over Memorial Day weekend, and they were pretty close together. So I did have COVID back in 2020, January of 2020, and then I didn't have it for another year. But like I said, in the last couple of months, I've had it twice. And which brings me to the topic of COVID long haulers, wondering if I am one of those patients. Is it something that because of some weaknesses that I have in my immune system that it has activated a couple of different problems for me? So what's interesting for myself is that back in 2020, I had COVID. I got that from a patient and I did really well. And I didn't have any symptoms or any problems until this past Memorial Day. And I got sick again. And I had totally different symptoms than I did the first time. I had more like a cold and a stuffy nose. In fact, that's what I thought it was a cold and a stuffy nose, except I'd been around a lot of family, so I tested and I tested positive. And it took me about a week to get through that and to get over that. The symptoms weren't horrible, but I did not feel good at all. And then 4 weeks later, lo and behold, I get COVID again. And this time the symptoms were even totally different than the last two, which means that I had it in about 35 days from the second time I had it to the third time I had it. And what I find interesting is that those symptoms were the symptoms that people talk about having COVID. And I've never experienced those symptoms, but the third time I did. So it feels like when I go back and I look at all of the symptoms that people experience is I have had all of them, not all at the same time, but each time I was infected, which was 3 times. So what I want to talk about is I want to talk about a lot of the patients that I have found in my practice in this last year that have also had some long-term COVID issues. Remember, anything lasting more than 12 weeks, and looking for ways to heal that. So I think that in the next couple of weeks, I know that I can give you some research and some information about long haulers COVID and what to do about it. So I would like to talk about, myself and a couple of other patients who I had somebody who was in 1920 had COVID, one of the first patients that she realized. And it's interesting because they don't talk about having hearing loss. And she has had hearing loss ever since then. Never put it together because it was in 2020 that she experienced those symptoms and lost a lot of her hearing and her smell. So this was about like 2 months ago that I worked with this patient, and she started on a program of different things that she needed to take, different herbs that she needed to take that is known to heal those symptoms. So we started her on that protocol, and lo and behold, guess whose hearing came back after almost 3 years. I find that incredible. So I am wondering for myself if this is going to be a challenge for me, for one, and two, how many of my other patients are struggling with these symptoms and what's called long haulers.